Welcome back. This is Preeti Balan in conversation with Dr. Yesheswini Kamaraju for the Reach Foundation for Community Services. Today we're going to talk about teenage anxiety. So ma'am, what is teenage anxiety all about?
See, anxiety is a normal adaptive response, right? I mean, it's just basically signaling danger in the surrounding environment. We're all wired for signaling, picking cues from the environment about what is dangerous. So some amount of anxiety is normal. All of us become anxious time to time. So anxiety is normal for that matter. But if the anxiety is continuous and it's causing issues, then it's a problem.
When is it classified as an anxiety disorder? Like anytime you're going to give an exam or something, you could feel butterflies in the stomach. Is that severe enough for being classified as a disorder?
See, if the anxiety is excessive or out of proportion to the situation, and the teenager is unable to cope. For example, like you were saying, unable to go to the exam, unable to go to a social event, or continuously worrying. So it's affecting their day-to-day routine. Then we call it as a disorder.
And why is there an increase in reporting of anxiety in teenagers?
See, that's also because teenage brains are developing, and there are parts of the brains, like let's say amygdala, which is a part of the brain which senses emotion and danger, and then the prefrontal cortex of the brain, which is still developing in teenagers. So these connections are developing, and an adolescent brain continues to develop till actually mid-20s. So they're still learning a lot of these emotional skills, decision making, reacting to the environment, controlling, inhibitory control. All these things are developing in teenagers. So when the brain is developing, and during this phase they're also facing a lot of challenges, right, in terms of meeting new friends, in terms of learning new skills, in terms of socializing, taking new courses, or exploring themselves in the community and in their surroundings. So they got to face a lot of challenges in their developing brains. So that's the reason why teenagers are much more prone to anxiety compared to adults, and definitely more in girls, I would say.
It's higher in girls than in boys.
Yes.
Okay.
That's because, see, in general, the anxiety is much more higher in teenagers. There are studies reporting about 25%, even 25%, and some studies reporting 30% of anxiety disorders in children, in teenagers.
In teenagers.
So the rate is definitely increasing, because of course the complexity of the environment is also increasing, right? Much more competition, much more comparison, and then they're worried about their bodies, they're worried about their looks, they're worried about getting into into this competitive environment. So life has become at a fast pace, and of course the anxiety is increasing in teenagers. It's much more higher in the age group of 12 to 18 actually. It gets better post 18. So in girls, if I have to say, girls, there's also an influence of estrogen, see? So estrogen also affects impacts the anxiety component in girls. And also in girls, you're also looking at the other paraphernalia, like, that's emotionally more sensitive, and they're much more sensitive temperamentally, and also different things impact them, right? A bit more than boys, again, like peer pressure in terms of looks. And if you really look at these days, they're worried about their Instagram looks, and they're worried about their Snapchat. So a lot of things impact more in girls, and of course, as I said, hormonally also, because of the hormonal impact, anxiety is much more in girls.
And how, I mean, if as a layperson I want to identify that I am having an anxiety disorder, how do I do it?
See, normally, as I was saying, we all get anxious time to time, but when we are saying it's a disorder or it's a serious problem, we're talking about something that's coming without a trigger. There's no threat out there, there's no trigger, and you're getting anxious. For example, there are teenagers who are constantly worried. They're nervous all the time, they're restless, they may not be able to sleep because they say they're overthinking. I have a lot of thoughts in my mind, I can't sleep, I can't focus in my school studies, or when I sit for studying, I get a lot of thoughts. So they're worrying about everything and anything. Will I catch my bus? Will my parents be safe? Will I be safe when I go on the road? So there are a lot of anxieties. This is what we call as generalized anxiety. So this is so basically what I mean is there are no triggers there. But still you're anxious even when things are pretty normal around you. So that's how you identify. And also sometimes there are physical symptoms also they might develop which could signal anxiety.
What kind of physical symptoms?
Symptoms like some of the teenagers can present with stomach aches or headaches, or difficulty breathing, and then they go for medical workups. Their general practitioner must have tried everything, what could be the cause for this problem, and then they're not able to identify anything. And then the last thing is to think, is this a somatic symptom? Is this a symptom that is signaling some kind of an anxiety?
And does the presentation of anxiety vary in teenagers, or is it like just what you described? Would it be similar?
Yeah. See, it definitely varies because see, not all teenagers are going to present with the same kind of presentation. Like I said, there are teenagers, like I was telling you earlier, everything is anxiety provoking to them. However, I would put anxiety under a spectrum. There are severe anxieties, there are milder form of anxieties, there are moderate anxieties. So there are teenagers who would worry about everything. There's a continuous spectrum, I would say. And then there are teenagers who would get anxious only in social situations, like a social anxiety disorder for that matter. So going to a party is anxiety provoking, or going to a big match in a big stadium, watching a cricket match, it could be anxiety provoking. Or going to a family event where a lot of people are there could be anxiety provoking. And so social events, or talking to strangers, or talking to a doctor's appointment, I see some teenagers getting really anxious. Social events can be anxiety provoking for some teenagers. And in some teenagers I see performance anxiety. They're absolutely fine other times, but let's say they have to sing in front of their classmates or an annual performance day, they get very anxious. It's a performance anxiety. And in some teenagers I see there's a separation anxiety. That's surprising, right? You might think, why is there a separation anxiety?
Yeah. But isn't it common in younger children?
Yes, this is what a lot of parents ask. But interestingly, there is separation anxiety in teenagers as well.
Okay, and how does it manifest?
They wouldn't be saying that. They would say, no, I'm not attached to anyone, I do not have anything. But actually, that becomes more pronounced when they have to leave home for college, or they have to do something away from the parent, or leaving a familiar environment.
Secure environment. So
they could develop anxiety during that time.
Okay.
So there's a separation anxiety that can happen in teenagers, but it can look a bit different than in younger children. But it does exist as well.
Sure.
And then to continue on your previous question of how does anxiety present in different teenagers, some of them can develop panic attacks. They could be normal functioning, but suddenly they could get this intense anxiety attacks where they have difficulty breathing, they find they're getting choked, or they're going to die, they're feeling dizzy, or going to faint. So some of these are all panic symptoms. And they would worry about getting further attacks, and sometimes they develop panic disorders. So these are all various manifestations of anxiety. Yes.
So first thing for them would be to identify the anxiety, go consult a doctor, and figure out what form of anxiety they are. How does it impact a teenager's life?
It impacts their lives because they're sitting in, if one is anxious, what happens? Everything is a big deal, right? So for you it may appear it's a small thing, you should be able to come out of it. It's no big deal, you forget about it.
Can you snap out of it?
I think it's very difficult. For the person, for the teenager who is undergoing that, it's a big deal. It's real experience for them. It's not something intentional.
Can they distract? I mean, because we've seen some cases where parents expect that, why is it so hard? Why can't you just divert your mind? Why can't you just do something else?
they're not able to control it. It is coming. It's overpowering them. It's overwhelming for them to come out of it. That's the reason why they need assistance in helping them calm themselves down. So to answer your question, does it impact them? It impacts them because they probably are avoiding a lot of situations and they're sitting in their comfort zones. Maybe let's say a teenager who is very good at a music performance maybe isn't performing because of anxiety. Or someone who is extremely good academically gets thought blocks in an exam, and I often see some teenagers presenting saying, I blanked out. I don't know what I did. Or I couldn't enter the exam hall. This is also a manifestation of anxiety. So it does impact their lives. It is very treatable. First of all, I would also want to say that anxiety is very, very common. It's not something that's uncommon at all. In fact, even in adults, anxiety issues are very, very common. We all have at some point.
Exactly.
But the key is to manage them. The key is to understand your triggers, to identify in what situations is it increasing, and to develop coping skills to the situation so that you can manage anxiety. So I would say that we should identify anxiety in teenagers, help them manage their anxiety, and they could recover really, really well.
Thank you, Doctor. We would continue this conversation going further, where Doctor will talk about managing teenage anxiety and what parents can really do about it. So keep watching our channel. Thank you.